Hi, I'm Dana, and this month is Autism Awareness Month, and I've been seeing loads and loads of discussion going around, and I've seen this for the last couple of years while I've been part of the autism community, where people start the whole no, but people are aware of what autism is, so it should be Autism Acceptance Month because acceptance of autism is what we need. And it does kind of make me wonder what world they're living in, to be honest with you. I'm like, what support do you have? What accommodations are in place for you? Because oh boy, is that not my experience. So as always, this is my experience. I'm exclusively talking about things I've been through and I've experienced, and I think I'm definitely not talking on behalf of the autism community, autistic people as a whole. It's just little old me. And I think that autism awareness is desperately needed. And in all honesty, I think genuinely, perhaps more so than ever. So these are the general thoughts that I've had across the last couple of years seeing the discussions happen online. And it's also very much swayed by an experience that I'm going to share first, because I keep having to go to new GPs because I keep moving house because I can't find a stable living situation. And with my most recent one, I switched months ago, but only recently had the appointment. And as they do, they asked about my medical history, and I was like, I'm autistic. And he was like, oh, you're autistic, and when were you diagnosed? Was it private? And I was like, no, it wasn't private. I was diagnosed through the NHS in 2019. And he sat up straight and suddenly started taking me way more seriously. And it's very clear to me that happened because people who are being privately diagnosed post-pandemic, essentially after 2020, when the whole autism TikTok kicked off, doctors and medical professionals and the people that should be supporting and helping us are looking at those people and just being like, well, clearly you saw a TikTok and decided you're autistic and then paid someone to say that you are. And that's where I think even medical professionals, even people that should have more knowledge about things like autism than the average general person out and about, don't have an awareness of what autism actually is, or the ways in which it actually affects people, or even the ways in which it's diagnosed and the way people come to find out they're autistic. It's just a complete dismissal and overview of an entire section of the autistic experience from someone who should know much better. So I think especially when it comes to the general population, there isn't an awareness of what autism is. People know the term, people know the word, people are like, oh yeah, I have an autistic nephew and he doesn't speak. But we're still either basing it on old stereotypes or building new stereotypes. And I think most of us know that stereotypes are very rarely actually accurate or true, and are most often much more damaging than they are helpful. And I'll give that it's the type of thing that I do get to a certain point, because I've definitely come across the people on the internet where it's you're complaining that you don't have enough autistic traits to be diagnosed as autistic, but you don't have enough autistic traits, so you're not autistic. But it's also very much there is one of those people for every 1,000 people that fully fit the autistic diagnostic criteria and are definitely autistic people, and now aren't going to be taken seriously because one person misread or misunderstood something, you know? So I'm going to use that to sort of springboard my next few points, because I don't feel I need to super go into them having given that sort of point of my point of view. People aren't aware of what autism is, so obviously that bleeds into lots of other areas. So one of the big things that I've noticed is that people aren't aware of how to talk about or to autistic people. I've had so many scenarios in some fairly professional spaces and government spaces where people have been talking about autistic people and autism in general around me, and they're just so uneducated and unaware, and it's absolute bollocks. And I've also done a level 2 understanding autism course myself, and the ways in which that was literally educating people within all sorts of different people will take that kind of course. People that work in supermarkets, people that work in the job centre, people that work in GP surgeries, all sorts of different people that you interact with on the day-to-day are going to be doing this type of course to learn about autism and to learn about how they should treat autistic people. And they're being told people with autism need to be spoken to slowly to make sure they process things. And it's no, I don't need you to talk to me slowly. I need to just, there's some things that would help, and there's things that people are being taught that I personally find actively annoying and actively infantilizing and condescending, and that's not how I want to be approached or spoken to. It was several years ago now, but I went for swimming lessons a few years ago as an adult. Sorry, I need to block this hole so it stops trying to go into my couch. But I really struggle with the swimming pool environment, all the different smells, how bright it is, being wet, having the water touch me, the splashing, like it's loud. Like I already really struggle with just swimming pools in general, and now I also have someone giving me instruction and watching the way that I'm doing things and telling me put your face in the water, do this, do that, and giving me all these instructions. I kept doing things wrong where she was like I could tell that I wasn't doing what she thought I was going to do based on what she had told me. So I was like, I'm autistic, like I'm not being an idiot, I'm not being like willfully obtuse. I'm autistic, I'm not understanding what you're telling me, I'm trying my best here. And I genuinely think that this woman had probably had training, because I liked her, you know, like we weren't working well together, but she seemed like a nice person. And as soon as I'd been like, I'm autistic, she was like, okay, so very slowly we're going to take ourselves backwards and shift our weight and then turn. It's so frustrating and it's so condescending. And it's those types of situations where, like, obviously this person is aware of what autism is, hence why they've changed their behaviour towards me. They're trying to accommodate to me, but it's in a way that I definitely don't find helpful. I don't think most other people would find helpful. But if you ask that person, they would probably say, yeah, I'm really aware of autism. I know how to talk to autistic people. I've worked with autistic people. Beyond that, I think it's also extremely obvious that people are incredibly unaware of how it affects us as individual people, and especially how much it affects us internally. You know, like it's an invisible disability for a reason, because you can't see it. Like, just because I'm not visibly screaming, crying and hitting myself in front of you doesn't mean that I'm not going to go home and have a meltdown. It doesn't mean that the act of me masking to not be doing that in front of you right now isn't absolutely fucking exhausting and is going to cause a meltdown later. You know, and especially people are loving throwing about various labels, because again, people don't know how to talk about us. So the amount of comments that I've received online saying like, oh well, you're high functioning, so I don't know why you're complaining. And it's like, I'm diagnosed with level 2 autism, meaning I have substantial support needs. That's my diagnosis, is of having substantial support needs. The fact that I'm able to talk to a camera doesn't mean that I'm all good and all okay. The fact that I can talk doesn't mean that everything's all easy and fine and normal for me, you know? But the complete lack of awareness around how autism affects people internally, how autism just affects us as autistic people, the way that we are, the way that we see the world, the way we experience things, all of that is affected by being autistic. And people are not aware of that. You know, like I come across people all the time, and especially people who have autistic family members, and they genuinely have this idea of like, if you're able to speak, if you're able to do X, Y, Z, then you're basically not autistic, because their nephew, their niece, their cousin, their brother, whoever else can't do X, Y, Z and he's autistic. You know, like there's the degree to which autism is a spectrum, and it is highly individual to each of us, and each autistic person you're going to meet can be completely different from each other. You know, like I've come across other autistic people that have diets and routines, and like their entire life I look at it and I'm like, I could not cope with that. And I recognise that it's perfect for them and they're thriving and that's the support they need and it's great. But we have the same thing and we have completely different sets of needs, like opposite sets of needs. And I feel like there's a massive lack of awareness around that and a lack of understanding. And that's where, like, sure, yeah, I want to be accepted as an autistic person, but I also think when we start pushing that before we have awareness, people do the whole like, oh well, I treat you like I would anyone else, and it's like, okay, but you can't, because now you're pissed that I missed a social cue when like my disability means that I'm going to miss your social cues. You can't just give me a subtle little hint and expect me to pick up on it. And similarly, you can't keep hinting at me and be like, well, I thought you'd learn. I'm disabled, like that is part of my disability. There's plenty of things that I can learn. I'm probably never going to become particularly fucking good at social cues. And as much as I want to be accepted, accepting me to the standard of a neurotypical person that gets every social, or at least most social cues, obviously no one's a perfect social butterfly or whatever, but you know, like, you cannot hold me to that same standard because I cannot reach it. Like, it's literally impossible for me. But that's what a lot of people, I feel, see acceptance as, is like, well, I accept you as you are, I accept you as the person you are, you just need to do better, you know? Like, it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. And that's where I think that if people had more awareness, they would take it a bit more seriously. They wouldn't expect like accommodations to be short-term. They wouldn't expect you to stop being autistic and learn these things so that you're less autistic. Because it's probably not going to happen, okay? Like, as much as there's lots and lots of things that we can learn, there's lots and lots of ways in which we just are autistic people, and that's the way it's gonna be. And my final thing with all of this is that they're also unaware of how minimal support there is. Like, I know that some of you guys comment saying like, oh, well, in my country we have this, this and this, can't you look into that? I've looked into it, okay? We have fuck all in the UK. Like, maybe I know that one person in my entire internet history online as an autistic person, one person told me they live in a part of the UK that gets good support and I should just try and get that. It doesn't exist where I am. There is nothing. I've repeatedly gone to doctors, gone to GPs, gone to charities. Anyone with fucking autism in the name I've reached out to at some point. There is no support. My doctor told me the only support they can offer me is an autism support group, which isn't put on by like the NHS. It's not actually to support an individual autistic person. It's a group where you show up in a pub once every 2 weeks. I'm not going to a fucking pub for starters. It's loud, it's noisy, there's too many people, there's drunk people. I don't want to be there. Secondly, when I did go and meet, like, I think it was like 3 weeks after I was diagnosed, and all I'd been given was fucking little leaflets about what is autism from the NHS and a leaflet about this autism support group. And I showed up and it was exclusively men over the age of like 35. And like, I'm glad they have that, you know? I do think that autistic people that aren't like me deserve support, don't get me wrong. I have a whole shitload of trauma from men and I'm a woman in my mid-20s. They're not supporting me. You know, like, I'm sorry, we have completely different lives, we have completely different situations, we have completely different experiences, and they scare me a little bit. It's not working for me. That is not support. It's genuinely like fucking anxiety and trauma inducing. Like, it is. I don't want to sit in a pub at a table of 8 men. I don't. I'm sorry. And especially considering my abuser was an autistic man that was 5 years older than me, like, this isn't working for me. That is not support for me. But that is literally all that is available in my area. And it's like, okay, but like, I go sometimes days without eating anything because I don't have the energy to cook, and can't even think about like what food would be good. And if I don't eat something that is like the right food, then I'm just not going to be able to eat it. And if I try, I'm going to be retching and gagging and it's going to be a whole thing. What are we doing about that? Sometimes I don't have the energy to put my laundry away for like a month and it's literally clean laundry. It's just all over my bedroom floor that I have to dig through to get dressed every morning. What are we doing about that? Like, I don't socialise. When I go out, I might speak to a cashier. I might nod at someone in the street if they nod at me first. I literally have no life. What? Oh, but you can go to a support group with some middle-aged men. Thanks. I feel like I told you guys a lie with this part because like I just posted my Halifax vid. But it is literally a case of once every couple of months, I have one friend that takes me to Halifax and we have a lovely chat in the car on the way there and back, don't get me wrong. But like, once every few months, I actually speak to another human being for a couple of hours while I'm in a car with them. That's the height of my socialisation as a person, you know? And like, I would like friends. I would like to have people to do things with. I would like to know people in my area. I don't know how to even get there. I don't know how to meet people. I've repeatedly put myself out there and met people and still not managed to build any sort of friendship. You know, like I have 1,000 fucking acquaintances that I like and that I think like me. We're not friends. I don't see them. I don't know how to make that happen. Like, what are we doing about that? But when I've had these discussions with people, they seem so aware of all of this support I should be able to reach out to, and they'll start bringing up charities and they'll mention this place and that place. And when I go and ask these places or talk to the people or like send in my little application form through the website, it's for parents, it's for children, it's for a lot of stuff is for under 22s at the minute. And I'm like, okay, but what about when you turn 23? Like, I'm 28, that's long sailed for me, but like, so for so many people that are getting support at the minute, at some point they're just going to age out of it and it's just going to off your pop, autistic person, live out in the world on your own, deal with it, try not to be too vulnerable, you'll get fucked over by everyone you meet. Like, it's insane. So I'm wrapping up there. And like I said, as much as I would like to be like accepted as an autistic person, I think that's a future fight to come, to be honest with you. I think that making people aware of what autism actually fucking is so much more important. And like, especially with like, I haven't been bringing it up a whole lot because quite honestly, like, I'm in burnout. I don't have the mental capacity to deal with the hate that it will bring. I don't have the mental capacity to be sure that I actually know what's going on with it all, to speak politically and like make points. Like, I'm not going to go into it in depth, but in the UK, we're about to have, like, not about to, but stuff is going through government right now that would result in, over the next year or so, thousands upon thousands of people, disabled people specifically, losing a hell of a lot of money. Like, the benefit system and the disabled benefits in this country are going to be massively just like fucking chopped off. It's going to be way more difficult than it already is. It is already fucking torture to access a lot of disability benefits. Like, a lot of the disability benefits that are about to be cut don't actually affect me, even though I should be eligible for them, because the application process is so fucking tough, and it's just one random individual deciding whether or not you're disabled enough. Like, the disability system within the UK is already absolutely fucked, and the things that they are choosing to do and the things they want to go ahead with are literally going to kill people. Like, these cuts will make people will fucking starve to death, people will kill themselves. Like, it is going to cause deaths 100%. And like I said, like, it's disability cuts, so it will affect a wide range of people. It's definitely not autistic people, but I think we're all aware that it's people with invisible disabilities that are most likely to be fucked over first in those situations, you know? And like, they are going for everyone. This is not like a certain side of disability against the other side. But we all know that it's things like autism, ADHD, fibromyalgia, chronic illnesses. If they can't see that you have something going on, if you can't back it up with like provable tests, you're probably going to get just fucked over, because there is not awareness for the vast majority of invisible disabilities and various like chronic illnesses and horrible things that people face every day. Like, I really feel like the lack of awareness breeds a lack of empathy, and that's why we're seeing so many people be like, well, maybe they should get a job. Oh, if your limbs don't work, you can still wear a headset. People just don't understand what it is to be disabled at all for any of us, like autistic people or any others. So like, it is very much a case of, I think we need to focus on awareness before we start being like, and can you accept us too? You know, like, I wish the world was a nicer place. I wish that I could say like, everyone's aware of what autism is, we just need people to accept us better. But I just don't think that's the case. I don't think people do fucking know what autism is. I don't think a lot of people even care, to be honest with you. And I think that's where there's also like, I know I said I was wrapping up, I'm sorry, but I think there's also the massive issue of so many of us, like, not me, like, I'm very much making content for the autistic people, but I think that there's, you know, I know that there's a lot of really good in like autistic educators and people trying to like spread awareness about what autism is and to push their like experiences and things like that to neurotypical people and people who don't have the same experiences as us. And I don't feel like they get heard. I don't feel like they get seen. I feel like it is unfortunately very contained to like just the autism community, and the like wider society as a whole is still massively unaware, and they don't get it and they don't try to get it, and that's what I think we need to focus on. But like I said, I'm not speaking for the fucking community. This isn't some sort of like rally cry or like call to power or whatever. It is just like my thoughts and opinions and how I feel about it all. Yeah, I feel like I've missed stuff, but like, honestly, if I feel like I've really missed something big that needed to be in here, I'll edit it in as I'm editing. So I'm going to actually wrap it up now. If you want to see more videos from me, you can follow me here. I do love as a new subscriber. You can also like this video. I think that helps me out in the algorithm. I don't really know. I don't really get how the internet works, to be honest with you. I just like being here. You can also find me over on Instagram, TikTok or Blue Sky. And if you were so inclined, you can also find me on Ko-fi or Patreon. There's no pressure to do any of it. If you follow on Patreon though, you will get the link to the Discord. I think it might have been buried a bit. I might need to like post it again. I don't know how the internet works. I'm not even the fucker that started the Discord. I don't do anything on the Discord other than like interact with people, make friends there. Like I do not understand the internet, but it's a fun place to be. So it's up to you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I will see you again in a couple of days.